I never thought I'd watch the HOA president crash her shiny red SUV straight into my front yard. One second she was shouting about community safety, the next her hood folded like paper against my Snowman. The only thing that broke that day wasn't my creation, but her ego. It started a few days before that, back when the snow in Langston County was perfect, thick, wet, and heavy, the kind that sticks to your gloves. My daughter Hazel, 8 years old and full of wonder, begged me to help her build the biggest snowman on the block. Grandpa Art joined us too, camera in hand, muttering something about documenting the magic of civilian life. We rolled stacked 3 giant spheres of frozen joy right in the middle of the front lawn. Hazel gave him button eyes, a carrot nose, and wrapped my favorite scarf around his neck. We named him Frosty too. For 5 minutes everything was peaceful. Then Frank, our neighbor across the street, a retired firefighter with a grin too wide for winter, called out, "Looks good, Richards. Just hope the fun police don't see it." We laughed, but deep down we knew who he meant. Karen Johnson, HOA president. The woman who could turn a garden gnome into a federal offense. She was mid-40s, blonde bob clipboard surgically attached to her hand, and a permanent look of disapproval etched onto her face. That night after Hazel went to bed, Grandpa was filming Frosty through the window when he said quietly, "Well, looks like the fun police made their rounds." I looked out and froze. Frosty was gone, obliterated. My scarf lay soaked in the slush, buttons scattered 2 deep tire tracks carved into the snow. The same tread I'd seen on Karen's red Navigator. She'd driven onto my lawn to destroy a snowman. I wanted to storm over and confront her, but Grandpa's hand landed on my shoulder. "Patience, Reed," he said, calm and steady. "Revenge is a dish best served cold, and we've got plenty of cold." The next morning my anger had settled into something sharper, resolve. I wasn't going to yell, I was going to build smarter. So we rebuilt the snowman, but this time we made him stronger, anchored on top of the old oak stump, buried under the snow. Months earlier, I'd asked the HOA to mark that stump for safety. Karen had emailed back quoting bylaws and basically saying, "Your problem." So I made it my problem, my beautifully legal problem. Grandpa supervised the rebuild like a military operation. Hazel fetched bigger buttons. Frank watched from his porch, calling building on the stump, "Huh? Smart man." When we were done, Boulder the Snowman stood 9 feet tall, built like a Frosty linebacker, planted squarely in my yard. Grandpa set up his camera in the window, said he was establishing a fixed surveillance position. I called it setting the bait. That evening, Karen's curtains twitched nonstop. Her SUV idled across the street, red paint gleaming under the porch lights. Grandpa zoomed in. "She wouldn't," I muttered. He smirked. "Oh, she absolutely would." The engine roared. The Navigator shot forward straight off the road, across the curb, and into my yard. The sound was unreal. Not a crunch of snow, but the metallic scream of steel meeting oak. Her hood crumpled like foil. Boulder didn't even flinch. The whole neighborhood poured out, Frank cheering, phones recording the night lit by headlights in disbelief. Karen stumbled out face white as the snow staring at the ruin of her SUV and the unbroken grin of my snowman. For a second I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. By the next morning she'd replaced guilt with fury. The mailman handed me a thick stack of HOA citations, unauthorized lawn modification, improper seasonal display, even a $500 fine for hazardous fluid leakage. The hazardous fluid, of course, was the oil from her wrecked car. She'd turned her humiliation into paperwork, and to top it off she started walking the neighborhood in a spotless white neck brace, sighing dramatically about her injuries. I tried to ignore her. I really did. But then came the flyer. Community safety meeting. The dangers of unregulated lawn structures. I showed it to Grandpa. He chuckled. A public demonstration. "Oh, this will be good." And good it was. In the park she gave a long lecture about obstructions and then climbed into a golf cart to perform a controlled maneuver. Half the neighborhood gathered, half out of boredom, half hoping she'd do something stupid. She did. She turned too sharp. The cart tilted and slowly, beautifully tipped over onto its side. Karen lay there in the mud, legs in the air, her precious neck brace now a helmet of shame. For a long second silence. Then Frank laughed so hard he nearly fell over. The crowd erupted. Grandpa's camera rolled the entire time. That should have been the end. But humiliation only made her meaner. 2 nights later, I woke to blinding light flooding the windows and the low rumble of a diesel engine. Out front, a massive tow truck. And beside it, a bundled-up figure pointing toward my yard. Karen. She wasn't just towing her wreck anymore. She was here for Boulder. Grandpa was already at the door, boots on camera swinging. Hostile incursion, he muttered. Time to parlay. We stepped outside. The floodlights he'd installed kicked on, turning night into day. The tow driver shielded his eyes. "Whoa, buddy, trying to land a plane here." Karen jabbed a finger at my Snowman. "That's an illegal structure. Remove it." I pulled out my phone, showing the county map. "See this pink line? That's my property. That stump, that Snowman mine. If you touch it, that's trespassing, and my friend here," I nodded to Grandpa's camera, "is filming for the report." The driver sighed. "Lady, I tow cars, not snowmen. You want it gone? Get a court order." He hooked her wrecked SUV instead and drove off, leaving Karen alone under the glare of my floodlights, screaming at the snow. By morning, my anger had melted into something colder. Petty creativity. I went to the basement, found the box of 24 pink plastic flamingos my uncle had sent as a joke, and planted them in a perfect straight line along the property border, each one wearing a tiny yarn scarf Hazel helped me make. A bright pink army guarding Boulder's domain. Karen's reaction when she saw it was priceless, but I knew she wouldn't stop, and I was done reacting. It was time to end this. That weekend I gathered my allies. Grandpa, of course, my cameraman and strategist. Frank with his network of Ring cameras. And Paul, the quiet, retired accountant who used to be HOA treasurer until Karen forced him out. He arrived carrying a box of paper files. "She wanted to go digital," he said with a grin. "So I made copies of everything first." Inside that box was gold. Years of records showing her funneling HOA money into her own landscaping, ignoring violations for friends, fining enemies for nonsense. Add to that our footage of the crash from 3 camera angles, her dismissive email about the stump, the police report, the midnight tow truck attempt. We had a complete timeline of her downfall. I spent hours turning it into a presentation, simple, clean, deadly. We sent an email to the County Oversight Board requesting a special open meeting to review recent governance concerns. CC'd every homeowner. The subject line read, "Request for governance review of the Oakwood Creek HOA." Then I hit send. The night of the meeting, the community hall was packed. Karen sat at the front in her power suit, trying to look unbothered but blinking too much. She spoke first, rambling about a campaign of harassment and dangerous individuals undermining community harmony. Nobody clapped. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, opened my laptop, and said, "I'm not here to talk about community standards. I'm here to talk about facts." Slide 1. My email politely warning about the stump. Murmurs. Slide 2, photos from Hazel's birthday, the stump clear on my property. Slide 3, the county map. Then the videos. When the footage of her SUV ramming into my Snowman filled the screen, the room gasped. When it switched to the side angle showing the deliberate acceleration, people started muttering angrily. I played one more clip, the golf cart incident. The laughter that followed nearly shook the walls. Even one of the county officials was biting back a grin. Finally, I showed the midnight tow attempt, the floodlights, her shouting, the tow driver refusing to act. Silence. You could feel the tide turn. I ended with Paul's findings, $18,000 of HOA funds spent on no-bid contracts benefiting board members. 40 documented cases of selective enforcement. The room buzzed with outrage. Karen stood shouting that it was all lies, that I was the real danger. But no one was listening anymore. One of her supporters tried to rush the podium, but Frank simply stood blocking him like a brick wall until security escorted the guy out. When it was over, the head of the oversight board took off. His glasses, looked straight at Karen and said, "Mrs. Johnson, I think you and I have a lot to discuss in a more official capacity." That was it. The end. Within a week, she was suspended pending investigation. Her insurance company denied her claim, citing evidence of intentional misconduct. The HOA board called an emergency election. Karen and her cronies were voted out in a landslide. Paul became the new president. His first act was passing the Boulder bylaw protecting residents' right to seasonal displays. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Watching her for sale sign go up on that manicured lawn was victory enough. Sometimes power thinks it can crush proof, but proof, cold, solid patient always wins in the end.